Live from the KHOU11 studios, it's Great Day Houston. And now, here's your host, Deborah Duncan.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Great Day. It is Medical Monday, and we're not only looking out for your health, but also the well-being of the world because it is Earth Day. Well, over the past several years, many of you have called and said you finally got the answer to your problem by watching Great Day's Medical Monday. But sometimes there isn't exactly an answer or a cure to your health issue. Oftentimes, that's the case when a person has a chronic illness. It takes a real attitude adjustment to handle your illness instead of letting it handle you. My first guest knows that situation all too well, but since her diagnosis with lupus, she's inspiring others in the effort to not only survive, but to thrive. Please welcome former pediatrician and now healthy living coach and author Dixie Swanson. Hi, Dixie.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are such an inspiration in so many different ways because, you know, so oftentimes when someone gets that diagnosis of a chronic illness, it kind of means there is no real answer there. And they're kind of, you can look at it two ways. I'm doomed to live my life this way and I am the disease, or I'm a human being who can still control my life, who happens to have this disease or illness or syndrome.
Well, I took care of chronically ill children. That just happened to be my job as a pediatrician. And the kids taught me how to take care of this. They were kids first, and they just happened to have an illness.
Yeah.
And so that's the model that I followed. I'm a person first, and I happen to have this condition that limits very severely some of the things that I can do.
Yeah.
So I'll go do something else.
You know, it's oftentimes said that doctors make the worst patients. And sometimes even when you've been trained to recognize certain symptoms, that you don't recognize them in yourself. So what was the point that kind of brought you to a halt where you said, okay, something is seriously wrong here. I'm not just burning the candle at both ends, something's wrong.
Well, having my very, very smart nurse say, Dr. Dixie, you were limping on the other leg yesterday. I knew something was wrong, so because I was having joint pain, so I went to a rheumatologist. And most women with lupus will see multiple doctors before they get a diagnosis. And my doctor said to me, well, you have lupus. And I said, wait a minute, I don't have the rash. And she said, Dixie, less than half the people have the classic butterfly rash. And I said, will I do better than the last patient I saw? And she said, what happened to her? I said, well, she was a teenager and she was dead in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And she said, oh, yeah. She says, you're old. I went, thanks.
Yeah, at the age of what, 45?
45.
Yeah.
You're old. You'll be fine. You're just going to hurt. And I went, okay, I guess. But it gave me the permission to just stop. And I had what one person referred to as a lifestyle transplant. I went from going 110 miles an hour to going 15 miles an hour.
And the key there is you were still going.
Yes, but those 15 miles an hour were a lot of work at first.
Yeah.
But you see different things along the way. So I went from having a really big, wide life to having a narrow but very deep life.
Yeah. What's tough about this, though, is that even if you get yourself together and you say, okay, I'm going to control this and I'm going to live my life, is how other people around you might see you. And oftentimes we know folks who deal with a chronic illness, if there's not the cast on the arm, it's like, oh, so-and-so, she doesn't feel like it anymore. So-and-so has a headache. So-and-so says she's too sore to get out of bed. It really takes surrounding yourself with a great support system, too, to change your own attitude.
Well, yes, and I hate to be rude about it, but if you have people who think there's nothing wrong with you and you have a serious chronic illness, get them out of your life because they are not helping. They are hurting you.
Yeah. You were 45 but felt like you were 95.
I could not believe the change. You know, I was practicing medicine, doing television, traveling for fun, taking writing courses because I was bored. And then all of a sudden...
I love, she's a pediatrician, right? Burning the candle at both ends, but somewhere in there you were bored.
Yeah, but I was bored.
Yeah.
And so I had to stop. I was stopped. And you stop, you honor the situation, you back up, and you go, okay, what can I do?
You kind of push the restart button again.
Yes, and there are some diseases that you fight. You fight cancer. Lupus, you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
It's a condition.
April is Healthy Living Month, and so you kind of, as I mentioned earlier, you redefine yourself and you give yourself another purpose. And because you have been able to deal with this, it's cathartic for you to be able to help other people deal with it as well. So when we say like a healthy living coach, what does that involve? And tell us about some of the patients you work with and how you see that change, that spark that changes in their head.
Well, I have mentored several young women with this disease or similar diseases, and I have had to explain to them that life is going to be different. It's not going to be as good, but it's still going to be very much worth living. And one of the key things in that is to give back. I mean, if you're at home and you don't have enough energy to even go out of your house, the least you can do is pick up packages for your neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, say to them, have them deliver them to my house.
You know, we even look at that in psychology today, how instead of, prescribing an antidepressant sometimes, what they'll do is say, go do something good for someone else.
Yes.
And it brings so much value.
Right.
All right. Lupus, let's go ahead and describe a little bit about what that is, because so many people are diagnosed with it, and when they hear that word lupus, they don't know what it is. And is there a cure, and how do you handle it?
Okay, lupus is a chronic inflammatory autoimmune disease that picks on any organ system that it wants to.
Yeah.
From your brain to your toes.
Which is the reason why we see just kind of how it acts differently in so many different people.
Right. It's mostly women, 9 to 1, women to men. And so a woman who has seizures and a rash has the same disease as a guy who has joint pain and kidney failure. So go figure.
Yeah.
And the darker your skin, the more likely you are to get lupus. But the most common presenting complaints are not on the diagnostic list of the diagnostic criteria. So doctors often don't think of it. And if you go into a doctor's office and you say, I'm fatigued, it's like going into an Eskimo's igloo and telling him you're cold. He goes, you're fatigued, you should do my job. And so you have to be very specific. You know, like I eat a bowl of cereal and I have to rest because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, yeah. You have 3 steps to stay positive following a difficult diagnosis. Medical progress occurs daily, which we certainly know that today. And
yes.
Miracles do happen. Others have walked your path successfully, which is what you're doing and being on TV today and talking about it. Also, tips for reinventing yourself. You're also an author. As you said, you're bored, so you're taking writing classes. You acted on that, and you might not have really taken that bull by the horns if you were still practicing medicine, doing your other job.
Right.
Tell us about the book that you wrote. Well,
I've written a trilogy called The Accidental President, and everyone in the audience is getting an autographed copy.
Yay! And the book is basically about...
It's basically about a young woman who accidentally becomes a senator when her sister dies, and she's appointed to her seat. And then, oops, she becomes president, and she's single. She's been an ER doc, so she thinks hair and makeup is a ponytail and lip balm. And she's quite a character, and she gets into some real scrapes.
Well, there's the accidental president, the accidental author, because of what happened to you, and then you go right back to what you said. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes good things can happen from a bad situation. That silver lining to a cloud. Well, Dixie, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today. And if you want more on Dixie and how you can survive and thrive, just log on to our site at greatdayhouston.com.
Facebook question of the day.
Oh, yes, it is. In honor of Earth Day, we want to know how you go green. Log on to our Facebook page, and we'll share some of your comments later in the show. Plastic bags. I cannot seem to throw a plastic sandwich bag away. I just wipe it off, and that way I'll have plastic sandwich bags for the rest of our lives. What do you do to stay green?
Compact fluorescent light bulbs.
There you go. Okay. Well.